This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Throughout life, we experience many kinds of relationships. A commonly used descriptor in many of these connections is the word friend. We use it to refer to everything from social media acquaintances to our spouses and BFFs, besties. When someone is a friend, it can mean we have a deep and meaningful relationship with them, or it can mean we are simply familiar enough with them to feel a warm connection. But not every relationship is warm and pleasant all of the time. Sometimes, even the closest of friendships can experience challenges due to misunderstanding what the friendship means to all parties, lack of appreciation for the friendship in its current state, misplaced expectations, or other conflicts. Because relationships can be challenging, it is helpful to step back and do a little defining of our circles of friendship. You can't be best friends with everybody, but you can have a meaningful relationship with almost anybody. Valeria Teles interviews Beth Beutler, the author of Circles of Friendship, a guided journal for learning to think clearly about your friendships. Beth Beutler loves to help people flourish and owns H.O.P.E Unlimited, where she helps others pursue excellence. Drawing on over 30 years of experience in administration and operations, she and her team provide virtual assistance and coaching to individuals or small business owners located anywhere in the world on an as-needed basis. Pulling insights from her work in operations and administration and her life experiences, Beth creatively distills helpful information into practical soft skills and personal growth hints, thought-provoking questions, and constructive guidance using a variety of formats, such as books, blog posts, workshops and keynotes, audio and video content, and social media posts. Blessed by an extensive and eclectic network of relationships, resources, and ideas, and the love of collaboration and connection, she finds herself naturally facilitating solutions for others, including introducing them to people, information, and products that can be helpful to their personal growth. Meet Beth at bethbeutler.com. Here is the interview with Beth Beutler.
In your own words, who is Beth Beutler?
I would say that I am an eclectic person who loves faith, fellowship, fruitfulness, and fun.
What is another word for friendship, Beth?
Another word for friendship, relationship.
What is your idea of God, or what is your relationship with that? What do you call God? Where, what, and who is God to you?
To me, I believe that God is a creator, an artist. I believe he created me very uniquely, and that he wants to have a relationship with me, and it doesn't have to be, it's not about a religion. It's a particular practice. It's about what he's done for me, and I personally believe that he sent his son to offer me a way to have that relationship with him. And so that's what I believe and have since I was a child.
I love the way you call God an artist. I never heard it that way before. The creator, the great creator, right, of life and all things.
Yes.
So do you believe that God chose us to be here in this human body and to go through everything that we go through? Or this is something that we have chosen ourselves?
I think that he is aware and has a plan, but I also think that he, as a loving parent would, you don't control everything that your child decides. or does. And you try to love them and you try to guide them well. And sometimes they'll make mistakes that cause some consequences. So I kind of think that's how he looks at the human race, that it's not the ideal way, some of the things that happen, but he's there for us through all of it. And I think that he's willing to offer grace even when we feel we've made a mistake or having some consequences to things. I don't think he abandons us, just like a loving parent, I would hope, would not abandon a child, even if they made a choice contrary to what they were hoping for them. So that's how I look at that.
That makes me think about unconditional love.
Yes.
Is that another word, 2 other words for God?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's perfect. Mm-hmm.
It's not even a belief system. It's something that just resonates true, that this life itself, it's unconditional love. Right. That's fantastic, isn't it? That we are here almost like children to play, to be what we want to be unconditionally.
Mm-hmm. And when be a friend, be a friend of God. There's talk about him being a friend to us as well. So that kind of ties in with the whole concept of my book, Some Friendship, and I look at God that way too, in lots of ways, lots of different.
What is happiness to you, and what are some of the misconceptions we have about happiness, Beth?
I think happiness is, in part, my joy and happiness, as you talked about relating with God, that's the first part of my source of joy and happiness, because our circumstances can make us enjoy life, but I don't know that they can be the source of all our happiness, because our circumstances don't always turn out the way we would like sometimes. But we can still have an undergirding foundation of joy and appreciation for life.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what happiness is, kind of an outgrowth of deeper having joy. But happiness, I sometimes think, is more from the day-to-day things that bring a smile to your face, or relationships that you just have fun with, or the people you enjoy. But happiness is elusive if you only rely on your circumstances, or you only rely on a relationship, or if you rely on others to provide that for you. Then I think it can be very elusive. Because, people aren't perfect and circumstances aren't perfect. So your happiness, if it's only gauged on what's going right, and sometimes things are out of your control on top of it, then, and I'm guilty of that. I'm not pretending to not have, I get frustrated if my computer isn't acting right or something, that kind of thing. So happiness is a gift too, and it's an attitude, I think, that we can go into, knowing that things aren't always going to go perfectly, but how are we going to look at it? What kind of attitude are we going to have?
Gratitude comes to me a lot when I think about responding, right, to life in this open space and this healthier space, let's say a healthier space of being. Gratitude, it comes to me a lot.
Yes, that's a great connection to happiness. I think people who are thankful tend to live a happier life.
For sure. And this is something that we need to be reminded of all the time, in a way, isn't it?
It definitely. I'm speaking to myself here, because it's so easy to go down the route of complaining or whining, or wanting everything to lay out a certain way in the day for it to be a successful, quote, day, instead of kind of resting and leaning into what happens and being grateful and looking for the things that were good about the day. And especially difficult, when there's so many pressures, and to forget to be grateful for the things that we can do and our everyday joys. So I think that's a great reminder.
How do you define success these days? What is to be successful to you?
Well, I'll be transparent and honest. I struggle with this because I'm an achiever. And so sometimes I do find myself feeling like, well, my business is going to be successful. My book sales are going to be successful if I sell books, or if I have enough clients to make a living, or that kind of thing. But I find that sometimes I go through periods when there's not as much coming in, that kind of thing. And so as I step back and think, what would be a success in my, business, which I, my motto is to help others pursue excellence. That doesn't always mean that I'm going to get, quote unquote, pay in money for it. But if I'm influencing others to pursue excellence in their work and in their lives and in their relationships, not perfection. We can't obtain perfection necessarily, but to pursue excellence and to grow, then I am a success if I'm helping people do that, even if it's not about the bank account. And so I have to remember that myself sometimes. That success is about what am I doing to benefit the other people around me. And for me, too, it's how am I helping people make God better? Since God's important to me, how am I helping people understand God in their life better? That would be a measure of success for me as well, if I could be of help to people with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's not about a destination, right?
It's the journey, right? About the journey of life and progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes, some days might be, quote, more successful than others, but long run, it's more about, like you said, the journey, not that if I've attained a certain income or a certain lifestyle, then I'm successful. No, I don't think that is a great measure.
At this time, what do you think is the world's greatest need?
Well, speaking for myself, because as you mentioned, my faith is very important to me. I really think that that the world needs a better understanding of how much God loves them, the individuals, how much and what he wants to have a relationship with them. I feel like there are so many stresses in the world right now is a particularly hard time globally. I think so people, are looking for something beyond just themselves. And unfortunately, humans are very disappointed in one another right now, too. And so I feel like having faith helps you feel like you realize that it's not just about the everyday life and the frustrations with other people or dangers or whatever you want to call it. I do think that having a sense of how God loves us and wants to have a relationship with us is probably very critical in what people are longing for. And they're looking for something like that anyway in a lot of ways. And I think that my view of God is he would love to welcome more people with open arms if they would just let him in, kind of thing.
So you wrote the book, Circles of Friendship, a guided journal for learning to think clearly about your friendships. So what was the inspiration and intention of writing your book, Beth?
Well, as I think back, it's been, probably at least 2 years since I started. And I'm blessed with many friendships, but they're all different in description. I've got a lot of online friends and I've got some, in-person friends. And as I recall, I've gone through some situations where a couple of friendships didn't turn out to be what I'd hoped for them to be. And so by learning to think about the idea of, not every person has to be your closest friend or your best friend. I just, say that in the book, they can't all be your best friend, but you can have they can be part of a meaningful part of your circle of friendship, which as you, throughout your life and on the journey, as we talked about the journey of friendships, we have an expanding circle of relationships that come into our lives. And when we manage our expectations, I think we can have more joy in those friendships instead of thinking, I wish that this person would be this to me or would reciprocate in this way. And maybe they're not, they're not able to do that, or they're unintentionally not doing it. It comes back to how are we going to view that relationship? And that's kind of the catalyst. I think came out of my own thinking of maybe processing that for myself a little bit. That then the book sort of came about as you go. Yeah.
That makes sense. That comes from our understandings about life and our experiences. That's the best anyway, when we write from that place or create from that place. You're also the founder of H.O.P.E. H-O-P-E is an acronym, Hope Unlimited. So talk to me for a moment about that too.
Well, Hope Unlimited stands for helping others pursue excellence, and it is the umbrella. It's what I call lifestyle business, because I'm trying to actually reframe my own paradigm that it is not about just making an income. It is about the flexibility and freedom I have because I run my own business. The three components of what I do within that business is I am a virtual assistant / concierge kind of person that comes alongside people who need all kinds of administrative assistance. I'm also a personal growth coach, you might say. I help people with their soft skills and personal growth, and then also as obviously a writer and content creator. So those all kind of synergistically work together to help my clients whether they need hands-on help or they need a little coaching to get better at handling their email, for example, or something like that. And I might, write resources and blog posts. So I'm finding that it's very synergistic. So people can work with me and get the benefit of all those different components of what I offer.
That sounds wonderful to me. What a great invitation. I know I have a very large team, but we still have issues with emails. That's one place that I still need help with. And I'm trying to get around that, but we'll see. And soft skills, never heard it that way.
Yes, soft skills are those intangible qualities that a person carries from job to job. It does. And they include things like emotional intelligence, time management, conflict and people skills, conflict management, pretty much anything that comes into how you exhibit your behavior and character at your job, regardless of what the hard skills would be, more the technical skills of, say, producing a podcast or typing or doing books, bookkeeping. But intangibles, but very noticeable, are whether someone can get along with the people on the team, or whether they're able to communicate clearly during moments of conflict. And so those things, we all need to grow in all those areas continually in order to do well in our work, and they affect our personal life as well. So I've done some training classes on that. Some of my books really do fall under that, what you call soft skills of life. Even the friendships, dealing with friendships. And so it's a fascinating area because those are the things that, they say you can hire for skill. You can hire somebody based on just, the ability to do something. But if they're not able to get along with people, they're not able to manage their time, they're not able to respond, in a timely way, then they can be great at that particular task, but they might not be a great fit for a team because they're not collaborating well with other people. And so those soft skills are the things that leadership and all that people carry with them from job to job and life situation to life situation. So those are important to cultivate.
You wrote somewhere that I found here, probably in your book, that personal and professional growth, they walk together. It's not separate, right?
Yes, that's on my website. That it's a synergistic so that's why I call myself a personal growth coach, because as you grow personally, that's going to affect your professional life anyway.
Right.
It's going to bring good things into your professional life.
So true. So true 1 billion times to this idea of getting to know ourselves better, be more aware of who we are. I know you mentioned earlier parts of that, but the way you wrote this is so true. You say you cannot be best friends with everybody, but you can have a meaningful relationship with almost anybody. The almost is the interesting word there, almost. Why not everybody?
Well, that was intentional. I put almost intentionally because I do want to acknowledge the fact that there are some toxic or unhealthy relationships. Unfortunately, that's just the case. So I wanted to make sure people didn't take that as a cliche. Well, I got to get along with everybody. I believe that, probably 90% of the time you can have a meaningful, and what I mean by meaningful relationship doesn't mean that you even talk to the person every week, but it's a rich conversation or experience when you do see them. We all have people in our life that you may not see for many months or years, but then it's like picking right back up when you see that person again, because you can have a meaningful interaction with them because of some great memories you have in the past or connections. So, but I do think we do need to be aware. I talk in my book about challenging friendships. I think we do need to be aware. And of course, I warn people, I would not want anyone to expect to stay in a situation that was not safe for them, emotionally or physically safe. That's, I'm not trying to convey that, well, you've just got to be friends with everybody no matter what.
True. No. I agree.
That's why the almost is in there for those few cases where it's just not healthy.
Yeah. What are some of the requirements? So what makes a friendship? I know you have so many kinds that I never thought about, interestingly, but what makes a friendship a friendship? What are the components to that?
To me, it's basically any kind of shared experience, generally positive shared experience with someone. I use the term friendship widely. Some would prefer that, well, they're not my friends, I work with them. Well, I feel like it's a version of friendship. If you're having pleasant interactions with someone and your life is better for them being in it, then I think then Even if it's only once in a while, I still think that would be a friendship to me.
In your book, you talk about the principles of the concept of circles of friendship. So I'd love to explore them. 5 of them, I think you have. Yeah, 5 principles. The first one, relationships often will not fit into one distinct circle.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can talk to me about each one of them, Beth, would be helpful.
Yes, well, the idea of circles and overlapping, and kind of some of the circles on the art on the book is they're open and overlapping and interacting with one another, so that they're not all separated in such tight boundaries that you don't overlap. So you might have a friend that you met at work, and then you don't work together anymore, but you also continue to have the friendship. So it was kind of a work friendship or a colleague friendship that turned into something else. So I have about 15 different types of friendships mentioned. And that's what I mean, that sometimes you'll overlap, where for a season you were a common cause friendship, and now perhaps you are colleagues. Maybe you start working together. And so you end up having maybe multiple layers of that friendship. And so I think we forget that we can look at all these different opportunities and say, oh, my goodness, I have, I use, just because I had to use C, of course, I use cyber friendships really are online, but online begins with O. And so we have to use C. Cyber friendships are the ones that you have online, say through Facebook or whatever. But you might end up finally meeting that I've had that happen, where we end up having dinner. They're coming into town. We have dinner. We have a great time, and it's like now you've established a second type of circle with them because you've had some other shared experience. So that's one of the principles. Is not the purpose of the book of helping people think clearly about their friendships is partly to not be too rigid in putting people in such a box that then you get disappointed if they don't do what you want.
True.
There was some other principles too, but did you want me to mention those? Did you say or?
Oh yeah. The 2 boundaries are helpful. That's a big one. Yes,
and I think that kind of does allude to a little bit to what we were just talking about toxic. Some things sometimes you just have to end the friendship, but boundaries, you can have healthy boundaries with your friends that help one another respect your time, or respect that you might be doing things with other people too. It doesn't mean that you don't love them if you're going to hang out with somebody else. And then another principle is that relationships are not just about you. One danger, I think, of self-reflection and self-awareness is sometimes we can become self-centered if we overdo that. And so relationships are about giving as well. And so there are times that we put aside our preference. Like, I don't like to shop, but I have a friend who really does. She understands that probably not to invite me on a weekend shopping. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't sometimes put aside my shopping, less interest in shopping, and not spend a little time with her if she's wanting to do that, if we're traveling together and stop at a store. I think there's got to be that give and take. And then I would also recommend using discretion in defining friendships. The journal is more for the internal work. It would not be sometimes very kind to say, oh, you're a common cause friend to me. It's more for you to personally to understand and manage your expectations, because if we try to label our friends out loud, I think that kind of backfires. And then the last principle is, a lot of times in friendship, we hear the words, oh, she's a close friend, she's a casual friend, or she's a best friend. And I purposely stayed away from those because I wanted to expand the definitions of friendship. And I'm also just personally, I don't care for the best friend reference, because I feel it can kind of make people stand out. Like if you have other friends and you talk about hanging around with your besties, then anybody else who knows you knows they're not a bestie if they're not in that photograph kind of thing. That's true. And so I kind of feel like it's not the kindest thing to do is to have a best friend, because that really best should mean the number one person only. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have that person and feel like it, but to advertise it that way, I think sets up an unnecessary hurt feelings for your other friends, and you may not even know it when you do that.
I love how you have the C's, all the friendship kinds, the styles, in the circle, they start with the C. And that makes me think about connectivity, connectedness. So that's what life is all about. So let me say the ones that kind of caught my attention. I never thought about concluded friendships. I never thought about them. I never thought about crisis friendships. Yeah, and you say making a choice to conclude a friendship or being concluded is a difficult thing. Yeah, what are the challenges that we face with that, Beth, concluding friendships?
Well, I think that one of the things that's really challenging is if someone else decides to conclude a friendship with you.
Yeah.
If we're the ones that decide that it's not really a healthy friendship anymore, then we kind of feel the power. But if it's done to us, and sometimes there are just situations sometimes where people are not able to accept what you can give in a friendship. They want more. Maybe they want to be in touch every day, and you just cannot do that.
Yeah.
And some folks, I think, who maybe have been hurt in the past, they just decide, well, I don't want to be, friends with you at all. If I can't have access to you all the time, then I just would rather you not be in my life. And they may not even say that, but they may choose to just kind of cold shoulder you or cut off, communication, and you sit there. Sometimes you wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
Other times, if it's a pattern that they tend to do, you might decide, okay, I have to accept this. It doesn't feel good. And so I think when those things happen, we have to look and see, is it really necessary for me to have the last word in this friendship, or can I just accept that they are not going to be content unless they can be in touch with me every day, and I'm not able to do that.
Yeah.
And so you have to accept whether, have I been kind? Have I done what I can? And if they choose that they want to walk away from it, then it's hard. And you may never have a full explanation, and your pride may be wounded a little bit, but in the long run, it might be healthier to just allow them to make that decision and be thankful for what you had when you had it. And maybe you might end up being thankful you don't have it anymore, too.
That's so true. And about communication, it comes to me always another C, right? Communication, that comes to mind when I think about friendships, relationships. What is your message on effective communication, or maybe even empathic communication?
Well, I think communication is partly, and this is something I've got to work on, because those of us who do like people and like to share our ideas can have a harder time listening and really listen. So communication is both receiving, and I self-admit I'm weaker in the listening part. I process out loud, and so I tend to talk. So I think that when you understand, again, some self-awareness about your own temperament and what you bring into a friendship, I have to accept sometimes that some of my friends or people in my life are going to process in a different way. And so they may not verbalize stuff out loud too much, or they may be a great listener, but I have to be careful not to overtake advantage of their listening.
Right.
So that's a communication skill in a friendship that to think about, okay, have I asked them how they're doing? Instead of me always talking to them because they're such a good listener. And having skills like that to think about, or if you're going to see somebody for lunch that you haven't seen in a few weeks, maybe think ahead of time, what is it that maybe they've had going on? Like, have they bought a new car in the last week or since you last saw them or something? Because sometimes you may be in touch still online or by text. But if you're going to see them personally, what can you be excited about for them that has happened in the last couple of months?
Right.
And be ready to start conversation based on, hey, that your new car looks like it's really awesome. How are you enjoying it? That kind of thing, to show that you've been paying attention, and not just say, hey, let me tell you what's going on with me.
There's something to be aware of when it comes to self-knowledge and being very much into doing this inner work that we do. And in the process, we process differently. We're all different, unique. And it seems like listening, it's a kind of communication, isn't it? It's a very powerful one.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an important part of communication so that you can pick up on things. And you mentioned about how the inner work, and we all do things a little differently. That's why the journal is designed with, artistic elements and writing elements. And so it's got both the linear and the artistic side, because people learn differently and they process their thoughts differently. So we tried to do that in the book.
So let's see, we're almost at the end, and I have so many other things here. You have many, many kinds of friendships. And let me see another one that caught my attention that I never thought about. A cause friendship.
Yes, Yeah, that is one I experienced, that when you get involved with something important, let's say that you have a nonprofit organization that you volunteer for. And in the course of that, of volunteering, you meet other people who are also volunteering for that organization. You can build some deep friendships with those people because you all have a common love for that particular organization and that particular cause. Now, one thing to be aware of with that is at the point when maybe you're no longer volunteering, let's say it was an event, a big gala or something, and you all helped to put it together, and then the gala is over, and then you all kind of go your separate ways. You do have to understand that just because you spent a lot of time with those people for those 9 months of planning or whatever, they may not be able to have the room in their life after it's over to have that same level of, talking to each other weekly and having coffee and planning meetings and all that. And especially sometimes some folks are very involved in a cause in their life, and that is all consuming to them almost. And if you helped with it, you could be their friend while you're helping with it. But once you kind of stop, which is not wrong, I'm not, at all. Sometimes there's seasons. There's seasons for things. So season for helping with that cause is done. You have to accept that if they're still involved with it, they may be still consumed with it, and you're going to see them less and less. So you can get bitter from that, or you can think about being grateful for having worked together shoulder to shoulder to advance something of good for the world. And, and try to be content with, okay, this is only so much they can give because they're still so devoted to the cause. And I can appreciate what they're doing and to continue that cause going forward.
That's beautiful. When you think about that, we can actually be this way. It sounds to me like a very mature kind of existence, being a person that's very mature, like an adult. That, being grateful in face of, in the situations like that, when people don't want to be around us. I mean, they have their own reasons not to, and that's okay. I always go back to spirituality because gratitude to me is very much connected to that. Being spiritual.
Being grateful for the time you did have with those people doesn't mean they're bad people because they don't have time to get together as much anymore.
My last question about your work is the difference between a crisis friendship and the challenging friendship.
Okay. Crisis friendship is generally one that comes about when you're going through something very difficult, say a tragedy, a loss. What comes to mind for me is when my father passed away many years ago, a colleague of mine came over, and we were a small family, but we had people, all kinds of food that came to us, and we did not need all the food that we got. It was very kind of people, but it was just, she came over and she organized everything. She kind of really served us well with that whole process. And we don't even talk to her now, and not in a bad way. We just, our lives have drifted in different directions. But I'll always remember that with fondness, that, she came at a time of sadness for us and crisis, you might say, and jumped in and helped us, even though we weren't close friends, around the other time. And that's the kind of thing crisis friendship is, I think, is somebody who will stop by if you've had an accident and stay with you until the ambulance comes, or, things like that. Challenging friendships are different in the sense that it kind of goes back to what we talked about with people who want more from the friendship than either side's able to give. Those kinds of things are people who are a little bit on the toxic side. They're, are self-centered. Those are your challenging. And sometimes you'll continue to have those, and you might even have those with people in your family and stuff. So you're not going to cut them off completely, but you have to navigate through some of the difficulties of getting along. And so that's the difference with that. We all have challenging relationships and challenging friendships. The decision of maturity is whether it's best to not have the friendship anymore, or to handle it in a way where, both sides can at least still have some meaning in it, even if it's not exactly what either side wants.
So I have these ending questions for you. But before that, would you like to add anything or read a passage from your book?
I think I just want to leave people with that same quote that we talked about earlier on, that, you cannot be best friends with everyone. It's too much stress to try to be.
True.
But to look for meaning in the relationships that you are blessed to have. and accept them, where they're at. And some will grow, and invest in the ones that you'd love to see grow, but also accept the ones that maybe just are limited in time or energy or season of life, and not always feel like you won't have fun unless you're with your closest friends. You can have fun with other people and expand your world a little bit. Learn to expand who you interact with, so that you can enrich that big circle and expand that circle of friends, and to help children understand this as they're growing and understand about friendship. I was told that a couple of teachers wanted to use some material from my book to help young kids learn as they teach about anti-bullying and things like that. And I'm honored to think that, they might think that this will help you don't have to have just one best friend, even as a young kid. You can enjoy the people in your class for what they all bring to the table. And so I think hopefully that will set some children up for welcoming more people in their life.
If you knew you would die soon, meaning leaving or losing the body, would you make any change or do anything in a different way?
Probably not too much. I try to be a blessing to people. I try to point people to God. I would want people to know, again, that God loves them and wants a relationship with them. That's what I would like people to know when I left. I would like people to think of me as someone who helped remind them of that.
Yes, that unconditional love. Yes, beautiful, Beth. And my last question is, what are 3 things about life you wish... you actually said that already. What are 3 things about life you know for sure as of this moment?
Okay, I know God loves me. I know that people are worth knowing. And I know that we are not a success just because of the money we make.
And before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
The best place to go is to my website, and that's BethBeutler.com. And Beutler is spelled it's Beutler. So BethBeutler.com, and that's where people can find out about me, what I offer, and then also find all the social media. I'm on several different channels, so they can find what channels I'm on, and I welcome anyone to connect with me on those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Stay well. Bye for now, Beth.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Beth Beutler and her work, please visit BethBeutler.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.